everyone, and welcome to another video in the series Piano for Beginners. Today we're going to talk about rhythms. Now, what I find really difficult to understand is how many people can get round into recognizing notes, but then they really struggle understanding the rhythms. So very often I'll hear my students play the notes accurately, but that rhythmic structure, it just is really hard to grasp. And in my course, Learn to Play the Piano in 10 Lessons, I talk about 3 simple varieties of rhythms, which actually makes it very easy at first to grasp and understand. And to be really honest, as a beginner, you'll probably use only about 3 varieties for quite some time. So today we're going to look at some of the ways of how you can easily understand this, because everything to do with piano, it's first and foremost a mental workout. Moving your fingers on the keyboard takes only about 5% of all the workload. 95% happens in the brain. So your understanding is really crucial. And I'll try and show you some logical ways of grasping this matter. One very important aspect to understand is that rhythm, what is rhythm? It's just a different length of notes, and through the mixing of those different lengths of notes is how you end up having melodies which have some sort of rhythmic design. So rhythm is very closely related to time. At first you can actually try and do some exercises in clapping rather than playing, but I'll show you both ways today. So we're going to have a look at the keyboard right now, using first individual notes, so you're not distracted by also playing different notes in addition to playing different rhythms. And once you understood the rhythmic varieties, you can then put some notes and use different combination of those varieties that I'm going to show you to really test and try that you really understand it well. Before we move on to this, I will just mention one more thing. Very often my students ask me, which speed shall I play this in when it comes to rhythmic accuracy. And one thing you really have to understand very early on is that speed has nothing to do with rhythm. So you can go very slowly or you can go very fast. It's all about relation between the notes. So think about it as, let's say, the longest note that I'm going to show you being a certain length. Then the next note is half of that length, and yet another note maybe a quarter of that length. So what I found from experience in teaching for many years is that when you put the rhythmical structure in relation to time and length and space, it becomes kind of a little bit more easier to understand. So remember when I talked about different rhythms or different lengths of notes being seen in more of a mathematical concept. So we will start with the longest variety for today, which is in the UK called a minim. In the US it's called half a note, and it is worth 2 counts. That's what we usually say in music. So let's say we assume our counts will go this fast. So then each note is worth 2 of those. If you imagine on the line how the time flows across those 2 counts, this will create a very nice visual for you that you will be able to then break down quite easily. The next variety is a crotchet, which is called in the UK, or a quarter note in the US. And assuming that we're still in the same speed, each note is worth 1 count. So now let's recap on that. So the first notes were minims, 2 counts each. And now we have crotchets or quarter notes, 1 each. The last breakdown that I want to show you is quaver note or 8th note. and basically they are half of the previous quarter notes or crochet notes. So if this was our count, so we'll fit 2 on each one of those, so there will be halves. Now at first you might probably want to just memorize the sound of them in whatever speed you go, or visualize that long line across that you firstly break into halves and then you break into quarters. And lastly, what you could do is practice going between those varieties of notes until you really establish them well. How did you find this? I hope it's a little bit easier now to understand how rhythms work. What I would say is try and practice maybe writing out different combinations of those minims, crochets and quavers, and see if you can club them first in different combinations and then play them next on a single note, and only then try and see if you can play the rhythms across different notes. Remember that you can vary the speed. It's entirely up to you.